conventional wisdom would, and frankly, people bluntly told me it was career suicide to go to Barstool Sports, that
Really?
I'd be ruining my reputation.
Wow.
But it was actually really good for me, and I'm so grateful I did it. I loved it.
Welcome to the Let Me Save You 25 Years podcast. I am your host, Shawn D. Nelson. When was the last time you got an invite in your inbox that you just deleted? Your kid came to you and said, Dad, Mom, let's do this. And your first instinct, of course, was no, maybe later, maybe next time, not right now. Today, our Shawnism is say yes first, and developing this bias for action, this bias to go for it, right? Business, your family, your kids, opportunities. It's so easy to say no or just walk away from opportunities that might be uncomfortable or ambiguous or unknown. We're going to dive deep into this topic with an amazing guest. She has been the CEO of one of the most rapidly growing media companies on our planet, Barstool Sports. She is currently the CEO of Food52, a serial entrepreneur on many boards of directors. Erika Ayers Badan. We have an amazing conversation about how so many people hold themselves back by just thinking too much. You know, how sometimes I don't know might be the second best answer to saying yes. We're going to talk about why Erika's father told her the best control is no control, and why Erika thinks we're in a management epidemic right now. Because, management leadership doesn't always play well on screen. And in fact, I think media has contorted what a good leader looks like because it can be hard to portray. And so we often get different kind of portrayals. We'll go deep into all these topics. It's fantastic. Erika is amazing. I really think you're going to love this conversation. And if you do, please give it a 5-star rating, subscribe to the podcast. We have no advertisers on Let Me Save You 25 Years. We just want to put out the best content with the best guests, like this episode right here. Check it out. I am so excited to talk to our guest today. She is a powerhouse leader who has not only redefined the digital media landscape during her tenure as CEO at Barstool Sports, but now spearheads a culinary revolution as CEO of Food52. She was named by Fast Company as one of the most creative people in all of business. She's a frequent public speaker at some of the biggest conferences out there. And last year, she added author to her already incredible, diverse resume and has a podcast, by the way, that is just crushing it called Work. Check that out wherever you listen to podcasts, YouTube, see it on video. Her achievements prove that she has mastered the art of embracing opportunities, defying conventional instincts, and understanding the power of saying yes first, even when it sometimes is easier just to do nothing or back out or succumb to inertia. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Erika Ayers Badan.
Hi. I'm only going to disappoint you after that introduction.
Never, no way. So Erika, when you heard our topic today, say yes first, without thinking too hard, what was the first thing that came to mind?
Oh, I'm a big say yes person. I think a lot of people hold themselves back because they think too much, quite honestly. Like, I think the thinking of things is really where people get stuck, mostly within themselves. I think in business and in life, you never can understand where you can go or what can happen if you say yes.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's tricky because, of course, we're taught to value our time, learn to say no. Here I am. And I've talked about that on this podcast at the same time saying, so I'm not saying we don't say no, but I think that as a general practice, it's fun to challenge yourself to say yes first. One of the realms that I really push myself on this is with my kids.
Yeah.
They'll come to me like, Dad, can we, just fill in the blank? And I want to say yes first because it's so easy for me to oh, in 20 minutes, oh, maybe
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow. Sometimes I just have to put down what I'm doing and go jump on the
Yeah.
tramp with them or
Yeah.
shoot baskets with them or,
Yeah.
you find that?
Yeah. I think, I think no is the second best answer to yes. I think a lot of times people spend most of their time in the non-answer in the middle. I agree with you. I think one thing I'm always trying to get better at this is saying yes to the things that matter, like time with your kids. Like that is more important than the 400 emails you would write in that same time span.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times people are afraid of the unknown or afraid to look stupid or afraid to make a mistake. And I think getting over that is incredible things can happen if you just say yes. I look at my career. I think the things that changed the trajectory of my career are when I said yes, when common sense would have been to say no. So I think, I look at it as like it can be an incredible game changer for you.
Well, let's go right to, I think where a lot of people would know you from. You said yes to become CEO of probably the most publicly bro culture on all of
Yeah.
the internet at Barstool Sports. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I really wanted the Barstool job. I was working at a startup in music. I had gone to raise money and I walked into a meeting with the investor in Los Angeles and they said, "Hey, we've just put money into this company you've never heard of." And I was like, "Oh, what company is that?" And they were like, "Barstool Sports." And so I pulled out my phone and I was like, "Here's the app. I'm on it every single day. I love Barstool Sports. Here's why I love Barstool Sports." And I left the meeting really jealous that somebody else was going to get my job. Like I wanted that job. I was in the investor meeting for a totally different company in a totally different space. And I left feeling sad. I had so many emotions: sad, jealous, excited. And then I just put myself to work to get the job. And I worked really hard to get an introduction to Dave Portnoy. The reason I love Barstool Sports is, in 2016 or 2015, when I first, heard about the job opportunity, there weren't very many companies like Barstool Sports. It was totally renegade. It was entirely unprofessional. It had a cult following in Boston. The metrics, when you would look at a metric for Barstool Sports, it was like it was fantasy sports. Like the engagement was so rabid, it was so high.
Yeah.
They had like a cute little t-shirt business. They worked with a handful of beer advertisers. And I was like, there's just nothing else like it on the internet. And I liked that I saw something that I felt no one else saw, and that it could be a way bigger business than what it was at the time, which, is ultimately what it ended up becoming. But conventional wisdom would, and frankly, people bluntly told me it was career suicide to go to Barstool Sports, that
Really?
I'd be ruining my reputation. I got fired from every board I sat on when I joined, and I'd worked hard to get on those boards. So it was a little bit like devastating when I got there. I was like, oh, I'm choosing, it's a binary choice. I'm going to choose this and I'm not going to get to do the other stuff.
Wow.
But it was actually really good for me, and I'm so grateful I did it. I loved it.
Yeah. That's super cool. What an experience. And I feel like you were inside of a major, what I consider a cultural icon, and
Totally.
captaining it. Pretty cool.
It was fun. It was a lot.
Yeah. When you were in the role of CEO of this company that was experiencing crazy growth, I think it grew from like 15 million to close to 500 million under your tenure. That's a lot of growth to experience. Obviously, controversy here and there with people involved. Just the way that a media company that's, like you said, is breaking all the rules.
Yeah.
Were you able to say yes first in that environment, or did you find how do you reflect on that?
Yeah. I think we grew so much because I said yes first, to be honest with you. Like my dad had always told me that the best control was no control.
Wow.
And that was a little bit of what I brought to bear, I think, at Barstool Sports, which was, first understanding the landscape and the situation that I was in, to listening to the people who were there. And, there was insanely talented people there. Dave Portnoy is, arguably the most talented personality in culture, let alone the internet. But I also think we were very willing to take risks, and we were very willing to try things all the time, even when there wasn't assurance that it would work out. So, a good example of it was when we started podcasting very, very early. And part of the reason we grew so much is that we were aggressive about podcasting before the big guns, ESPN, CBS, NBC, all those guys, before they jumped to it. And the reason we were able to grow disproportionately fast was that we were early and we weren't worried about making money, because what I had done was make the cost basis very low. So we weren't taking on a lot of risk to be able to try something new. The same thing happened with TikTok. And I think that's one of the things. So whether you're in your life or in business or whatever it may be, like, if you don't saddle yourself with a bunch of cost or a bunch of obligation or a bunch of worry, it can free you to try things.
Mm-hmm.
I say this to women all the time, which is like, hey, look, like, if you have some sense of financial independence, you can take a lot of risk. You can take a lot of risk. I have taken a lot of risk in my career. I've had 2 jobs, or like 3 jobs now, where I took a massive pay cut to make the change. And most conventional wisdom would be like, don't do that. Don't take the pay cut to make the change. But in my estimation or calculation, if you take the pay cut and you're willing to bet on yourself and work hard, that can actually catapult you to someplace new.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. I think this idea of, don't saddle yourself with a bunch of costs is really important. When a lot of people found their business, and I find this to be true even today. The psychology still pokes at me with other ventures I get involved with, or just other things in my life. When people start their business or a new venture, the first most exciting part is sometimes, buying equipment, buying a desk, getting an office, like putting stickers on the truck. I don't know, whatever it is for that business. And all of those things are just expenses masquerading as your business.
Yeah.
But the real business involves production, right? So if you're not actually producing something, so I didn't even go to making money, right? Like, sometimes that has to follow, like, to your point on the podcast, you were producing content, you were, actually creating something of value, even if you weren't getting remuneration for it. And therefore, in my estimation, you were doing business and not just pretending to do business by taking on expenses, which is an easy thing to misunderstand.
Yeah. I think, it's funny. We say it in my family all the time, where I think the inclination is always like to send somebody a gift, when in reality, what that person wants is time and, closeness and affection. And it's the same in business. Like, if you're trying to build culture, yes, stickers are awesome. But what's better than stickers is like investing the time with other people to build a culture. Or, in the case of Barstool Sports, we knew that the greatest currency was audience. And that if we could build audience through production, the money would follow.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I agree with you. A lot of companies, they get focused on all the trappings. It's like all the trappings, and the trappings are just distractions,
Yeah.
And I think that's a hard lesson, especially, a lot of startups now, most startups are having to grow profitably. And I was always worried about payroll at Barstool, so we kept the cost like so low, and that was a good lesson, because it's like, hey, if you can, growing profitably means focusing on the culture instead of on the stickers, or putting your money into production instead of putting your money into ancillary stuff that doesn't move the needle. So I think those things are all super, super important.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's easy to confuse that. So I love this quote from your dad. Let's go back to that. The
Hmm.
best control is no control.
Hmm.
Unpack that for me.
So my dad used to say that to me when I was, probably in high school. I think he started saying, I'd get all fixated. I'd get like all worked up on something. Um, Maybe it was school related, could have been sports related. I don't know. Could have been
Mm.
like, he would just, my dad was very, very calm and very, very kind. And he had a nice way about him. And what he really taught me was, if you stop overemphasizing everything and you sit back and you watch and you learn and you read the room or you read the situation and you let people do their thing and you appeal to what is motivating to those people to help you get what you want, is a better way to achieve the outcome than you trying to control the people.
Yeah.
And my dad was a teacher and then he was a principal, so I think he used that a lot in his career. But I do think it's important. I see it a lot at work. I see it a lot with people who I work with, and I've seen it myself in my career too, which is the inclination to micromanage, the inclination to bend people to your will. It doesn't create a long-term value. It may create a short-term outcome, but it doesn't actually get you what you want. And at Barstool Sports, what I wanted was for people to grow and for them to like moderately stay out of trouble, like not entirely stay out of trouble, but kind of stay out of trouble. So I was like, look, I can try to control them and be like the school marm and tell them what they can and cannot do, or I can just make them insanely busy so they're tired and they're so busy working. It's like kids, So I think it's just a different way to think about how do you achieve an outcome by appealing to the motivations of everyone, not just the need for control within yourself.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. One of the things I've observed is I've had a long road trying to build Lovesac into something
Yeah,
meaningful. And, we're finally at a place that begins to matter. We're, not quite there, but approaching $1 billion in sales. And we have a
that's
lot of new products
amazing.
coming. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you. It's been a long, hard road. But as I've gotten older and just had more experience, I find that it's almost like how much can I stay out of? And I don't mean like I'm removed from the business. I
Yeah.
mean, one of the things that I discovered that I think, to build on what you said, the best control is no control, is that in many realms, especially let's take marketing, where everyone's a marketer, right? Like everyone has good ideas, everyone has like funny,
Everyone knows best. Yeah.
yeah, right? Whether you're in marketing or not. Um, but my head of marketing would sometimes do things that I didn't like I would have done it very differently,
Yeah.
but I resisted and tried not to kibosh it or stick my fingers in it, and I'd find that that way worked.
Yeah.
Now my way might have worked too,
Yeah.
but it didn't need to be my way, and in fact, if I had imposed that, I probably would have lost that person from their own demotivation, right? And so I've had to really learn that just because you might do something different doesn't make it more right.
It's super hard because I think sometimes when you're a CEO or just you're in charge of something, like you kind of want it done the way you want it done.
Yeah.
And it's hard to swallow that within yourself. Like you're like, I want it done the way I want it done. But when you hire really talented people and you trust them and you can be intellectually honest about, like, I like to work in very blunt environments. That's partly why Barstool worked well for me, because it's like, hey, that didn't work, like, or that did work, you know what I mean? And including about your own stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that help if you have an environment like that and somebody says, hey, I want to paint the town red, and you're like, I don't know if that's a good idea. You're like, you know what, try it, we can talk about it, and if it doesn't work, you become, one of the things I'm working on, and this is a little random kind of non sequitur, I also am trying to coach more than play.
Mm.
And that is a change. And I think coaching is like, hey, yeah, you want to go with the idea, and like, what we learn from it? How did it go? What would you do differently? So I think I'm in the stage right now where I'm trying to figure out how I can be a better coach.
That's good. I think that in the spirit of say yes first, finding ways to allow people to F around and find out
Totally.
that are at least harmless enough. It's not going to, create maybe severe damage to the business or your reputation or sales or whatever it is. But to your point, even I have had to really hold back sometimes because I knew something was going to fail, and I don't do this to. In fact, then I have to on the back end resist saying I told you so.
Yeah, yeah.
But sometimes, to your point about leadership, about not enforcing or cajoling, but instead influencing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, of course, the best teachers experience, and so finding ways that are again relatively harmless to let people experience and fail, and by the way, maybe succeed, maybe they'll surprise you, and we'll all learn something. And driving outcomes through influence and persuasion versus coercion. And it just takes a lot of self-restraint. And I don't think, it's not often modeled in leadership because it's easy in a movie or book or any kind of media to portray the boss being the boss. But the nuance that I'm describing can't even be filmed because it's actually happening inside my own head as a leader.
Yeah. It's not overt.
Yeah. So it's unfortunately, I think that media does not teach us well how to be a leader in many respects because so much of it is internal and it's about restraint, as opposed to like the big speeches and
the locker room,
the power moves.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there's two challenges. One is good management doesn't look great on a screen because you're not the center of attention and you're enabling other people's success. So that's one. Two is I think we're in a little bit of like a management epidemic where I think COVID contributed to this, but I think people have there's two negative things happening at work. One is that people don't want feedback and don't want to be managed. And two is people are learning poor habits of management, whether it's from media or whether it's just from lack of training or whether it's because you've only ever worked over Zoom. But I think there's two challenges right now when it comes to growing and thriving at work. One is that I think kids are showing up to the workplace less resilient and less motivated to get the office, get the money, be the success. Like the lifestyle of it all is really important right now where, people are spending most of their time scrolling on the internet, looking at what other people's lifestyle looks like. And therefore lifestyle is more attractive than, let's say, work. Like when you look at the movies that I watched or TV shows that I watched, that was 30 something, which was about an ad agency. It was Working Girl, which was about an assistant that gets a top job. You know what I mean? Like those aren't the stories you see anymore.
Yeah.
And then I think, sorry, go ahead.
Observation. I saw your bit on Instagram about vacation and Gen Z and vacation, time versus like, let's say our generation.
It's hot. I mean, and look, like I like Gen Z that they're like, you know what? I want my vacation and my vacation matters to me. Like I wish I was like that in my 20s. Like I would have had a healthier life if I was like that. But that said, when you're not on vacation, it's not just about you and your vacation. It's about what do you want to accomplish with the time you have? And hopefully it's something more than vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, those are really good observations. Something else you mentioned earlier, people are sometimes afraid to look stupid or be put in a situation where they're uncomfortable. So they say no, and I think of all the times. So I'm not a big networker, it's funny because that's a really common principle. I talk about it even in my book, the importance of it, but naturally I'm not one of these like work the room. I
Yeah.
have tons of contacts, like, oh, let me
Yeah.
call my friend who's invested in whatever. I'm just, because my business always was sort of like customer facing.
Yeah.
It was never like client facing. And I was
Yeah.
sort of on my own. Like, I ran these stores and malls, and like, I just had to sell, like, it wasn't really a networking kind of thing. Anyway, so, other than to raise money, I never really had to be that guy. And
Mm-hmm.
even till today, I really have to push myself to say yes first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every now and then to some of these opportunities to go hang out with other entrepreneurs, to learn, to go to events, because frankly, I'd rather just hang out with my kids. And so I really have to balance and sort of push myself to occasionally say yes to this or that. And every time I do, something fantastic comes of it. A new friend, a new connection that was invaluable.
Yeah.
And I'm always then I really kick myself like, oh
Yeah.
man, how many things
I
am I
should do this
missing?
more. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you experience that?
Yes, I am a homebody, so I also don't like to network.
Hmm.
It was funny. I was literally just having this conversation before I got on here about, I used to get, when we were trying to sell Barstool, I went everywhere. I was like, I'll go to every conference, I'll meet any banker, anytime, anywhere, I'll do dinner at whatever, I'm there. I am I'm very similar to you, which is my inclination is to say no. So, like, for example, I got invited to something tomorrow night and I have something for work tonight. So I'm like, I don't like to be out 2 nights a week. I know that makes me a loser, but like, I'd rather be home with my kids.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? Like, I am at a time and a place where I could use some perspective. And you know what? I'm going to go to this thing. I'm going to go from 5 to 6:30 and maybe let's see what I can find. And I think it is saying yes in those moments when you don't necessarily want to. And it's not all the time, because I think that's a little bit disingenuous to who you are or who I am. But I agree with you 1000%, is that you never regret it when you're like, you know what? I'm just going to suck it up and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is another aspect of being a boss or being an entrepreneur, or, building a business, that is really misleading in the media, in the sense that, sure, there are people that probably thrive in those scenarios, but those scenarios are really easy to depict. The fancy hotel, the lobby, the mixer, you have a drink in your hand, you're talking to people, you're schmoozing. These are easy to depict, and it looks baller. It looks boss. You're out at night, people pulling up in their fancy cars, there's valet service,
Totally.
whatever it is. But the truth is, if you've been inside of that, as you and I both have plenty of times, I always stand around sometimes and wonder how many people standing there looking so
Yeah,
dialed in
totally.
even want to be
Yeah,
here right now.
totally. Or
You
if they
know?
do want to be there, look, I think there's a place for that. And there's people who are really good at it.
Mhm.
And those are called salespeople. And those are people who like to network. Like, I always try to hire for things I'm not good at. And one of them is like going out all the time. Like, I don't like it. I don't find it fulfilling. I don't think you do your best work after like six drinks the night before and a late night out. So, but I always try to hire for that, because I'm like, that's a really important part of maybe it's an important part of our business. It's the same way for me hiring a
Mhm.
finance guy. I'm like, I need somebody who's like exceptional at the books. I
Yeah.
need a great accountant and I need a great salesperson.
Yeah. I think another thing that you mention in that realm that is worth double clicking on, people are afraid to look stupid,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times part of the reason I don't want to go to these events is, I don't know, like, I may not know anyone.
Totally. It's
I'm not
awkward.
in this group. You feel awkward. I don't even drink, first of all. So now I got to stand around with a Diet Coke.
Totally.
I
You're like,
sometimes, to your point of hiring to it, I sometimes, will joke. I take a designated drinker if I get the chance to take some.
100%.
But yeah, pushing yourself to, say yes to some of these things where you're going to feel discomfort.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you come up with the energy to do that?
I think you seem similar to me. Like, I'm an introvert extrovert. Like, I love to like work with people all day long, but if I have to go be like in an aimless, like, social, no agenda, like we're not accomplishing something together, I get a little bit like, ooh, that's like not my bag.
Yeah.
And I'm shy like that, I think, in real life.
And a lot of people really look forward to these things, like, oh my gosh, we're getting a free ski trip out of it. We're getting a
Totally. I'm like,
free
that sounds like my nightmare.
meal, a free, free drinks
Yeah.
all night, whatever it is. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm like, can I please just, pay for my dinner and I'll
Yeah.
eat it over here and
Totally. And
get
then go
something done.
home. Yeah. But I think, to your question, like, I think I really feel happiest if I'm like feeling like I'm on a path of something and I'm trying to accomplish or build or learn something or to make something happen. And a lot of times I think it's easier to be more comfortable, right? Myself
Mhm.
included, yourself included, anybody. And I think for me, it's just like constantly reminding myself of what could happen if I go to the thing or do the thing or try the thing um, and I think you can get on the other side of it too, where you say yes too much and then your boundaries get blown, and that's not a healthy situation either. But it is good to kind of jolt yourself a little bit. Like sometimes when I find myself in situations that I don't love being in, I tend to make everything a game. I write about this in my book where, if I have to I write about, I got invited to this conference in Utah, oddly. And for the first day, I just hid in my room. I was like, I don't want, like, I'm shy. I didn't know anybody. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to the cocktail hour and I have to meet 6 people. And I made it a game with myself of could I meet 6 people over the course of an hour and a half. And being able to have a game and something that was entertaining to me took a little bit of the anxiety or
Yeah.
the insecurity out of it. And so I think making things a game can be also a good way to trick yourself to say yes.
I love that. And I think it's so important to anyone listening to recognize, okay, here you are hearing from, a powerhouse CEO, been recognized in all these magazines on really large boards,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the CEO of a public company, and both of us are sitting here talking about our insecurities.
Totally. How you get yourself to do things you don't want to do.
But if you were just watching us through the lens of a camera, in one of those situations, we'd look like all the other schmoozers out there hanging out with other powerhouse CEOs talking about CEO stuff. And so it's important to always in the back of your mind remember, like, all of us were just little kids doing little kid stuff. Now we dress up and go play these games. And the truth is, I think that most of the people in those situations feel the same way. And I think if you can, remember that, like they say, like imagine everyone naked or whatever they
Yeah,
say,
yeah, yeah,
then you can have that confidence to say yes, to come out of your room, go to the network,
yeah.
do these things. And it may not be every time, but I really push myself. One of the things that I was reflecting on as I was preparing for this conversation was a time in my life when I almost said no.
Mm.
And my friends were doing this backpacking trip through China. I speak Mandarin Chinese. People that follow me know this story. Like, I was a missionary for my church. I learned Mandarin in Taiwan. I came back home in university, and my friends were spending the next summer backpacking through all of China. And he texted me and said, "Hey, we're going to do this. It's like 6-8 weeks." And of course, who has that time?
Yeah,
I'm busy doing this. I have a job. And originally I was going to say no, but I really pushed myself to say yes to this thing that was super inconvenient. I had to like actually quit a job and put some things aside. And somehow I ended up saying yes. We had this amazing trip. I think we spent $2,000 total,
oh my
including
God, that's
airfare,
amazing.
to spend 6 weeks covering all of China with backpacks and whatever. We were staying in these little $2 hotels. My point is, when I said no originally to him, I had in my mind like, oh, I'll go next summer, or I'll go it'll be easier. From that moment, I have never had a 6-week window in my life where that ever would have been possible. And had I not said yes, I would have missed what was one of the most formative experiences of my whole life. So it's moments like that that really remind me, to try hard to say yes first before you just write something off. You can always say no. You can always back out. Have you ever had an experience like that where you your inclination was to say no, or you even did say no and came back to it?
Not like yours. I think that's a great story. Side note, I think a mission is, everyone should do a mission. I think
I
a
know.
mission is a great life-changing
Yeah.
experience. Like I really do think the idea of having to go live in a foreign place and connect with people and live with a roommate and be uncomfortable is just,
Yeah.
it's such a gift. But I don't have as poignant a story as that.
That's good. I actually, reflecting on that too, because you called it out. There's a side of me now, because my daughter, my oldest, is 16 years old. She's going to be 17 soon. She's
Mhm.
starting to think about college. She's in her junior year, so all these things are coming, and then I have three after her. And there's a side of me that, like, I almost would rather see her serve now, knowing what I know in my life. I almost would rather see her serve a mission than go to college.
Oh, 100%.
Like, it just so valuable.
It's so funny. I went to a conference in Utah actually, and was having a conversation with someone who had been on a mission. I think he went to Italy,
Cool.
and just how it's kind of interesting. His son doesn't want to go on a mission, and just the dad being like, God, the mission, what it did for me in my life, and the son not wanting to do it. And there's clearly a tension there, and obviously a perception in the community and whatnot. But I really loved it. It's funny. I think what we're missing now is a lot of what we're missing is resilience and humanity. And I've not been on a mission, but one of the things, I never went abroad. I played sports in college. And then when I got out of college, I got a chance to go work for Microsoft, and the job was all around the world. It was in Tokyo, it was in Amsterdam,
Cool.
it was in London, and it was a very lonely job. And it was on an airplane all the time, and I was by myself. And it opened up so many things for me. Being in a foreign place, having to do something, not knowing anyone, and having to learn it all is just, the pace of that learning is just so extraordinary. And I tend to agree with you, which is people going out into the world, interfacing with other people, having to struggle, having to be resourceful, having to figure out how to get from point A to point B, let alone convince somebody to do something. It's just, I think it's really amazing.
Yeah, I think if you ever have an opportunity that presents itself with those kind of earmarks, say yes.
Definitely. I agree with that.
Push yourself to just find a way to go there and do it.
Definitely.
And I'm trying to teach my kids the same thing, but it's tough. They have
It's hard. It's very
their own
comfortable.
points of view.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an experience where saying yes first led to some kind of unexpected innovation, success, something that felt really risky, maybe even like an unknown that really worked out?
Yeah, I mean, I think Barstool was that. Like saying yes to Barstool when everyone thought I should say no, and then making it into something that extended beyond like every wildest dream was amazing. I would say, though, taking that Microsoft job, I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I think I had been out of this country once in high school with my dad. Do you know what I mean? And so signing up for a global job, and I remember my first week on the job, I had a conference call at midnight East Coast time, and I couldn't figure out how to make the international code work, and I'm like angry and figuring it out. But
it used to be hard.
it was hard. Nobody gets that now. It used to be super hard, and it was stressful, and stressful. But I think in that regard, still saying yes to something that you feel deeply unqualified for is such a good experience, because even if you screw it up like every which way to Sunday and you're an utter disaster, you will not be, because you will have built something within yourself that you will take through to the next place. Like I tried so many jobs that were utter failures. Like I sucked at the job sucked. Wasn't ever going to get anywhere. And in the moment, I remember interviewing at AOL, and the guy interviewing me was kind of like poo-pooing my resume and kind of saying like, oh, why'd you jump around so much? Like, why'd you try so many things? Why'd you do so many things? Like it was bad. And I remember just getting pissed off and being like, well, why wouldn't I? Like, I learned this and then I applied it to that. And then I tried the other thing. Like, and the whole point of it is that things may not make sense in the present, or things may feel like an utter disaster or a complete waste of time. But in the end, I look at getting the Barstool job, let alone succeeding at it. If I hadn't had all that failure and taken all those risks and messed up all those times, I wouldn't have been ready for it. Then I wouldn't have been able to meet that moment. And I think that's just important for people to think about.
I think in a lot of ways, people are unqualified for almost every job they take.
And should be.
Like, because even if you say, well, okay, like take me. Okay, so let's pretend I did something next. I could already say, oh, I've been the CEO of a public company. I could go be the CEO of another public company. Well, only if it was in the unique, inventive furniture space. Any other space, I would be kind of unqualified for. Even though I've done, this job, so to speak, because every space, as you're now in food. Like, tell me about that. I mean, that's a big leap.
That was a big leap. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm like, I don't know. Do I belong in food? Like, maybe I don't belong in food. Like, but I think I wanted to learn, like I took a big, I had done everything I wanted to do at Barstool Sports. I loved it intensely. I also spent 10 years marketing to, 20-year-old guys. And I was like, all right, I'm like in my mid to late 40s. It's like, I got to give up the ghost. But I do think it's worthwhile, even if this is a disaster, right? Let's say I don't belong in food, or let's say I can't make something great happen with Food52 or Schoolhouse or any of our brands. What I've learned in the last year of doing this is I'll take with me forever. And, I always say it, I think work is the tuition you get paid for, and everyone is unqualified. It's just like everyone at that party feels like an outsider or an imposter. Like, it's human nature. Yeah. So the people who I think are really the winners in it all are the people who are like, hey, I'm here to learn something and try something, and I want to be good to other people, and I'd like people to be good to me, and I want to push hard and see what we can accomplish. And I think that feeling of satisfaction is all we're really chasing, that feeling of fulfillment, and work should be able to do that for you. And knowing when you've hit your limit and gone past it and become something new, to me that's what I'm chasing. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm going to try food and home. And I don't know, maybe I'll be a success and maybe it won't be. And it's either answer is okay.
Yeah. No, that's good advice. One thing I was just reflecting on as as we take on these different roles as a parent, as a boss, whatever, a CEO, a marketer, how do I say yes in that realm? And I think as long as you have guardrails, as people come to you with ideas, right?
Yeah.
So like one of the things that's been really useful for me is at Lovesac, we have a really well-developed strategic guide, I call it, our purpose, our mission, our vision, our values, of course, all that. And one of the things that I've slid in there in our own framework is I stole it from Jim Collins, good to great, the hedgehog concept. This is what we do, and we only do this. And so, and it's, it's a fairly narrow band, so we don't get outside of like a strategy.
Yeah, get over your skis. Yeah.
And if people come to me with an idea like, oh man, we should do this, as long as it doesn't violate that hedgehog concept, I try to say yes.
Definitely.
It wasn't my idea. It's probably not the way I would do it, but if there's the budget for it and it doesn't violate, our core strategy, because it's just so easy to shut things down or to be closed-minded. So one last question, they say hindsight's 20/20, but what advice do you have on how to identify these moments where we can say yes and identify these moments that might have some weight or opportunity behind them that we can't see in that moment, but unless we kind of jump in with both feet and go for it.
I think you have to listen to your gut. I think your gut always tells you. I think it's like a little feeling in here that won't shut up, and you've got to honor it. And maybe that voice is really loud, in which case there won't be much reticence to do the thing. And maybe that voice is really, really soft. And I think it's listening to that voice inside of yourself more than you listen to the voices outside yourself.
That's good. Yeah, that nag, especially if it's a nagging one,
I know if it won't be quiet, you got to listen to it. And that's where, like, I always listen to the voice in my gut, and my gut's definitely been wrong, but it's been right for me way more than it's been wrong. And I don't want to have regrets. And I think, I think saying yes and trying things and being honest about when you make a good choice and when you make a bad choice is like, that's life.
That's so good. They've proven now that we have neurological facility both in our gut that connects all the way to our brain as well as in our heart. Our heart has its own neurons. So interesting. And I think that entrepreneurs and doers in life especially have those gut instincts. So great advice, Erika. All right, listen, everyone be sure to follow Erika on Instagram as I do. She got Erika.
That's did.
It. At Erika. How does that happen?
That was a byproduct of Barstool Sports.
Oh my gosh. And on Twitter, it's Erika, ERIKA _. So you got to talk to someone at Twitter, Erika.
I know. I tried.
Check out her brand new podcast, Work with Erika Ayers Badan, out on all podcast platforms, videos on YouTube. Thank you so much to this sensational CEO, the boss of the boardroom, the skilled master of sports media, the worshiper of wool sweaters on Instagram, the fearless leader of Food52. Check that out, Erika Ayers Badan. And remember, say yes first, and you will be surprised at how life-changing it will be in all areas of your life. Just might save you a chunk off your own 25-year journey. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Once a year to take my friends away should not be the budget for your bike across America.
TikTok has become an aggregator for some of the dumbest human actions.
When I won that million, I was $2 million in debt, barely hanging